Three friends boarded Disney's Galactic Starcruiser to seek their destiny and emerged as heroes of the Halcyon.
Great Sun Starcruiser superfans, and welcome to Heroes of the Halcyon, the best, and to the best of our knowledge, only Galactic Starcruiser superfan podcast on the interwebs. I'm Galactic Starcruiser superfan Martin, and with me are...
Superfan Christine.
And Superfan Drew.
We have got a really fun show today. Drew, tell us all about it.
I can. Tonight, it's going to be just the three of us. We're going to be talking about a variety of subjects, including our upcoming work for our YouTube channel. We're also going to discuss our Patreon page for those of you who haven't heard about it. We're also going to be talking about our May 2nd meetup at a secret location. And for our main topic, we're actually talking about a subject that was voted on by our patrons on our Patreon page, a perfect voyage. Can it be done? No. But can you come awfully close? Yes. And we're going to tell you all about it.
It's great that our Starcruiser superfan listeners can find us all the time on their favorite podcast platforms. But you know what we figured? We figured what's better than finding our podcast one way?
Well, is that finding it two ways, perhaps, Martin?
Well, we recently became aware that one of the biggest platforms for podcasts is none other than YouTube.
I was stunned to find this out. I thought, who listens to podcasts on YouTube? But apparently a lot of people do.
Well, I listen to a podcast on YouTube.
What podcast is that?
That would be the Always Sunny podcast. So yeah, it's really cool. They started out by just posting the actual podcast, and they've got several episodes up there.
So this is the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia crew.
Yes. And just recently, they've started posting actual video. So we figured, why mess with perfection?
Yeah, and then looking into it again, we found out that this is a huge podcast platform, and we don't want to neglect it.
Yeah, we actually just turn these episodes on in the background while we're working at home or just relaxing, and it's just fun to have it in the background. So what we've done is we put animations on the back of every single one of our episodes, just some fun looping things to, give you some Halcyon vibes while you're sitting at home or wherever you are.
And what better way to use some of our CSL photos?
So make sure to look for us on YouTube at Heroes of the Halcyon.
We also wanted to give a shout out to all our recent patrons at patreon.com/Heroes of the Halcyon. We've had several people sign up. Thank you so much. You do help support this podcast, and it helps defray some of the costs. We have a lot of fun tiers available for people, Martin. What do we have up there?
Well, boy, not only do we have a bunch of different stickers, and we actually, this past week, we got our first shipment of Heroes of the Halcyon t-shirts that we're going to start sending out. You can get digital action figure style card backs with your favorite Halcyon or your Black Spire Outpost photo. And for some of the higher tiers, we actually get physical card backs where we not only give you a digital copy, we actually fabricate you an action figure card back in real life and send that to you. So a lot of fun things, but boy, I got to tell you, it was a lot of fun to actually get our first large shipment of Heroes of the Halcyon merchandise.
It's pretty cool to see a box of t-shirts there. That's pretty cool.
So make sure to look for us at patreon.com/Heroes of the Halcyon.
So we are working diligently behind the scenes for our Starcruiser Superfan meetup on May 2nd. We now have our location at Stargazer Bar at Planet Hollywood in Disney Springs.
The pictures are amazing.
Yes.
This venue looks so cool.
Yeah, we're super, super excited. So obviously more details to follow between now and then. Make sure to pay attention on Facebook to the Facebook group for the May 3rd through 5th voyage that Dano and Sarah have put together. And then also make sure you're following us on Instagram because we'll be posting updates in both of those locations. So make sure you save the date. That's May 2nd.
It's going to be so exciting to meet so many of our listeners in person.
I cannot wait. So for this episode, guys, let's talk about what a perfect voyage looks like. Do you know what I mean by a perfect voyage?
I mean,
perfect.
I think our last voyage was pretty perfect, so yeah.
It was, and that definitely was my inspiration in thinking about this as an episode topic. And the other thing I really wanted to do was to provide for folks who want to hear, who don't mind the spoilers, they want to know everything. Now, mind you, we're not going to give you everything because you can't really have a perfect voyage, can you, Martin?
It's impossible. I mean, there's several things that actually contradict each other. That if you do this, you can't do that.
Right. Exactly.
There's certain things get kind of cut off from each other. But we kind of wanted to talk about that. The theoretical perfect day, if everything went just right, because you can be on certain paths and not be invited to everything that happens on that path.
Right. Yes. And it should go without saying that this is going to be a very spoiler-heavy episode. I mean, if the spoilers were hot, this one would be tss.
Mustafar.
Can you tell that I like using these new mics because they sound so good? So if you don't want to know spoilers, don't listen to this episode. But if you don't mind a spoiler or all of them, there you go.
So you'd think that being the heroes of the Halcyon Galactic Starcruiser superfans that we are, that we would have done everything that encompasses a perfect day. But you know what? In going through and putting together this list, we found out there are several things that after 2 voyages, we still haven't done everything.
Right. So we had to watch some videos. We had to talk to some people. So we might get some of these details wrong, by the way, but I think we can get close enough to help you out.
But Christine, like, what's an example of something someone could do right away at the start of day 1 of their voyage?
The one thing that we are going to remedy when we go back in May is doing the ship tour.
I can't believe we haven't done that.
I know.
Unbelievable. So literally, as soon as you go into the atrium, you're of course escorted down to your room and you get to put down all your belongings, whatnot. But the very first thing that you really want to do on a perfect day would be to go back up to the guest services in the atrium and say, I'd like to go on that Halcyon tour, please.
Yep, they're not running constantly. They usually have waves of them going, but they'll tell you when the next tour is. You probably just have you congregate there because another group of people will be coming up so you can join it.
And they do actually cut off. They don't run continuously throughout the voyage. I mean, they run for a couple hours and then that's it.
Well, the tour isn't a couple hours, just for the record.
Yeah.
But they run them for a couple hours.
Correct.
We don't even know how long the tour is.
Yeah.
I've actually talked to someone and it sounded to me like it was like a 30-minute thing.
Oh, that's cool.
But it does go to several major of the pieces of the ship, and you just hear different pieces of lore that, again, in talking to folks that have done it, really adds an extra dimension that kind of gets your voyage off to a really nice jump start.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be able to do that tour this time.
Another thing that's great for the opening, as you go to your rooms, they're going to walk you by engineering. So you have a couple of choices. If you're like we were on our first voyage, you might take your magic band, your data band, and scan into engineering, and you'll find out the door doesn't open. But as soon as you scan in engineering, guess who's going to be calling you on your data pad pretty darn quick?
Wraith Cole.
Indeedy Bob. This is one of the 2 ways to start Wraith's little pre-muster engineering room experiences. This is what, Martin, did you do this on the first voyage?
This is the way I just accidentally scanned. I'm like, I just tried to scan everything.
Yeah.
And then I got pinged by Wraith. I see that you're trying to get into
places you don't
belong.
Right.
And you come join my crew. So yeah, that was one of the fastest ways to kind of get on Wraith Cole's radar is badge into engineering.
A second way that you can start the Wraith Cole pre-muster experiences is by actually badging into the ship console on your data band. So if the first thing you do is scan into those consoles that are on several locations in the atrium and on the ship, very shortly after that, Wraith will contact you and go, hey, I need some help.
So that's another way that you could actually get on the Wraith Cole radar, which we all want to be on.
Absolutely. And I will say that there's more activities in the engineering way. When you go on and you badge into the engineering, Wraith actually tells you a phrase that pays that you can say to somebody inside, and that kind of clues that person working in the engineering room that you need to work on something. And it's a way to explore some of those escape room type activities that are in engineering. So that's really fun. But if you don't want to do those, just badge into the ship console and your favorite smuggler will give you a call.
But if you really want to start the interaction with the ship and the characters ASAP, this is definitely the way to do it.
One of those 2, either way, absolutely. Because it puts you on the Wraith story path right away.
Well, I tell you, not only was that an absolutely spectacular finger snap right there, but there's also another phrase that pays. That's with a different set of characters on the Halcyon. This is the Saja. So
yes.
Really, one of the secrets, getting on the Saja path is kind of difficult.
It's tricky.
It really is. It's actually, in my guess, it's probably the least attended of all of the different paths on Galactic Starcruiser. But if you find one of the Saja, and there's a specific phrase that, again, this is a spoilers hot episode, but we don't want to just feed you everything.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, you can Google it if you want, but there's a phrase that you can be aware of that if you say this to the Saja, it definitely kind of puts you, as a ping on their system.
Yeah, and the way that you find out the phrase is at the very beginning of the voyage, as many of you who've listened to a lot of other media and so forth have heard, there are some questions that Lenka Mock will ask you as you're going into the atrium. We did a lot of these questionnaires while we were in the security line waiting to get in, which was a lot of fun. If some people in your party mention that they are interested in the ways of the Force, one of those party members is probably going to be contacted by the Saja to let them know that phrase that you're supposed to say, that clues in the Saja to know that that's the path you're looking to go through.
And one thing I would encourage folks to do is don't just run up to a Saja and blurt out this phrase.
No.
Try to like work it into a conversation, and you'll definitely get better results that way. And something interesting with the Saja is there is a brand new session with them that was not in place for either our first voyage or our second voyage. And our second voyage was in October.
Yeah, it was October.
It's February now. So they've introduced this new segment in the past, couple months.
It was not too far after our voyage. I remember thinking, dang it, they did this now.
But it's called...
Guess we're going to have to go back a third time.
This new segment is called Ways of the Saja, and it's a short experience, but it's in the atrium just shortly after muster.
Yeah.
And this is where they kind of deliberately start funneling folks off into different paths. Some folks kind of go into a meeting with the captain. Some folks go into a meeting with the Saja. And to me, this is a really smart introduction.
Yeah, it was a brilliant idea, and it was great for them to listen to some of the feedback of how hard it was to interact with the Saja, because a lot of people don't meet the Saja until lightsaber training, and sometimes that's on day 2.
100%. So this was a really, really smart thing that if you really kind of want some time with the Saja, this is kind of a guarantee.
And this is another reason, too, why it's important for your group to actually make a conscious decision to go down different paths.
Yes.
We see a lot of times where a group will stick together, hip to hip, kind of going through this whole process. And it to us anyway, it doesn't make any sense. We break apart, you bring back all that information at dinner, and then you have the opportunity to do things that you may not, that may not pop up on your data pad because of the path you're taking.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're not even realizing the branching effect that this has, that you get presented with a question by Lenka Mock as to, what would you do in this scenario? You get presented with this question fairly early on.
Yeah.
And this is where they kind of start filtering folks off into different groups here. But I would actually recommend people if you have a multi-party group, do different things.
For a perfect day, have multiple adventures.
Yep.
So make sure to watch for Ways of the Saja in the atrium shortly after muster. But let's actually stick around the atrium for the third phrase that pays, and that's at the Chandrilla Collection store.
Yep.
That's just right next to guest services. And if you go into the store, which of course you want to do right away because
as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
I can tell you that the high demand merchandise such as the sabak chips will sell out fairly quickly. But there's a secret phrase that you can use to get a set. You don't get them for free. You have to buy them. But if you tell this, the clerk at the store, this secret phrase at the Chandrilla Collection store, she will guide you, or he will guide you, to the secret compartment on one of the displays where there are several buttons.
Yeah, and the great news is this phrase isn't really even a phrase, but it's basically something that you can talk to with the clerk at the store to get access to this merchandise.
Yeah, and it's really cool set of pins that you can purchase, and we love them. I mean,
they're gorgeous.
They're absolutely gorgeous. The only way to get these is by striking up this conversation with whoever's running the shop at that time. And I can tell you, they take this secrecy very seriously.
And we're going to take it seriously too. You can always look it up online. You can go to Facebook, and there's a bunch of people who will be out and tell you. But it's good to know that this experience is there, because if you don't know, then you don't have a chance. But we don't want to give you everything, but just enough to whet your appetite.
Because you can find out fairly without too much work on the ship. But if you want to go in, guns loaded, ready to go, you can look it up before your voyage.
And, sometimes it's good to rebel.
And keep in mind, too, because they do take this very seriously, if the store is full of people, they're not going to crack it open.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. So you have to be somewhat strategic, too, about if you're going to use that quote unquote phrase that pays. Right. They're not going to do it with a store full of people, because it takes away the
magic of the moment.
The mystique.
Yeah,
absolutely. The mystique. That's even better. We actually kind of made a joke when we were in there on our second voyage and almost shut the whole thing down because we didn't quite take it seriously. So it's definitely worth finding out. And it's again, I don't want to make a moment. It's not like, lights and then a hidden voice that comes out of nowhere. But it's really cool to have the experience and get a chance to get that merchandise.
Really, they turn a retail experience into a story experience.
Oh, yeah. That's a perfect description.
Well, one of the first big interactions with cast and crew is going to be the muster.
Yeah.
It happens at 4:00. The entire atrium is full of everybody that's on the voyage, as well as, like I said, cast and crew. It's a fantastic opportunity for you to make yourself known to the cast and crew.
Yes.
And that can be through, interaction one-on-one. That could be you joining in the conversation that you see others having. Believe it or not, it can even be them, cast and crew overhearing you having a conversation with somebody. So just interacting with everybody on the ship is really important as far as helping you maybe find your path on that first day.
And really, the sooner you can do that, the better.
Absolutely.
And it's good to know in the muster, you're going to get introduced to all of the major characters. So as you are trying to think of some of the paths that you might be interested in following, maybe somebody looks like they're more rebellious than others. Maybe some people look like they're of the First Order. Maybe there's people there that you might not know some of their allegiance, but you can ask them or you can talk to them or ask how you can help. And there's a cool little droid that you can badge into as well. So the muster is your time to start making your story known.
But let's actually get to some of the character moments with the one-on-one kind of secret things that you kind of have to know are going to happen or you're going to miss them.
Or you see them happen around you, but it's good to know that they're available for you.
Well, and one of the first really, really high demand ones, look for all of the children and you'll spot it.
Yes.
That's when Chewie gets smuggled on board. But after 2 times being on the voyage, I have yet to actually see this
really
person. Yeah, in person is, I've seen Chewie like going around staircases and just mobbed by children.
Right.
But I've never actually been able to take part in the Chewie being smuggled on board itself. And, I'm not even, do you, either of you know, where does Chewie actually enter the ship?
I remember hearing in one of our earlier episodes that he comes in via the cargo hold downstairs.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. But I'll confess, I don't know 100%, but I know that was something somebody mentioned to us. This is one of the things that we've termed atrium moments because there's Chewie coming on board and having to make it up to engineering, or he has to make it to the sublight lounge, or he has to make it from one place to the other. And what built into the story are several moments where Chewie has to be snuck from one section of the ship to another. So one of those is when he comes on board. Another is when Sammy needs to talk to him down in engineering. Another is when Sammy needs to see him in the sublight lounge, or Gaia needs to see him. I don't remember how he got there, but there are several of these. And like you said, if you go find the kids, you'll find Chewie.
Yeah.
And these moments are super fun. I participated in a couple of them. It's really fun to make a personal connection with Chewie because this is how you kind of introduce yourself to the actor playing Chewie. And it's super fun. So if you see an opportunity, you can't pass that one up.
Well, let's shift gears from Chewbacca to a different member on the kind of resistance path, and that's Captain Riola Keevan. And one of the very first things that you can get invited to after muster is a meeting with Captain Keevan in the cargo hold to kind of discuss things that are going on the ship, and she needs your help. And again, this isn't a one-on-one. There could be a number of people there, but it's a really good way to get some FaceTime with Captain Keevan. And I know, Drew, you were actually present for this entire meeting on our last trip.
Well, yeah, so 2 things. One, on our first voyage back in March last year, I happened to walk in the cargo hold when Captain Keevan was meeting with the people. And for folks who walk in, Captain Keevan says, "Oh, are you here? I believe there's something going on in engineering." She kind of waves you away. And I remember saying, "Oh, dang it, I missed that. So I got to figure out a way." But the second time at dinner, do you remember this, Christine, when Captain Keevan came to our table?
Right.
And we asked if we can help. And we were very conversant with her. And she leaned in and she said, "Well, hey, I could use your help. I'd like to see you if you would." And she gave us the time for the meetup. And it was so cool because you feel like you're getting, a mission from the person who's the captain of the ship. And since I had just finished reading the Halcyon Legacy before that second voyage, I felt like I was in the comic book. And at any moment, somebody was going to get sucked into space. But it was really cool.
It's those special meetings that we've kind of dubbed here on the podcast of the shoulder tap that seem to have the most meaning to them. It doesn't mean that the rest of it isn't special or important, but it's again that one-on-one with you that says, "Come meet me at the special place," and you're like, "Okay, I have to do that.
Yes.
I can't say no to that."
Exactly. And this is an example of how we kind of split the party, because if you guys remember, you guys also got another secret meeting that I think is really good to include on a perfect day. What was that moment, Christine?
So this was an invitation by Wraith.
Okay.
And I remember my piece of it was to go stand next to the hyperspace compass and basically wait and see if stormtroopers showed up, because we were trying to test to see if the silent alarm was working or not. So there were probably 3 or 4 of us that were standing around the compass just kind of looking at each other like,
What are we supposed to
is
do?
like something going to happen?
Right,
Or is this a joke, or what's happening? And then a few minutes later, stormtroopers would show up and we'd be like, we don't know what you're talking about. We didn't hear anything.
Yep.
So yeah, so it was another one of those shoulder tap moments that started kind of that path with Wraith.
Yeah, and we got that. You guys got that also at dinner, right? So, and that's where we had the competing Captain Keevan. Do we go see Captain Keevan? Do we go with Wraith? So we just split. I went Keevan. You guys went with Wraith.
Yep.
So there's actually a couple other things that you really want to do on your first day to kind of make it the perfect experience. And one of the first ones is the brig.
Yeah.
There's actually a secret code that gets you into the brig, and you could scan in to you scan your data band into the ship consoles, and there's a game where you basically are able to bring up a code on the screen. And you have to, what I highly recommend is use your phone to take a picture of this, and you need to run. And I do mean, they tell you not to run in the hallways. You have no choice but to hightail it from the console to the brig and enter this code there, because you only have 30 seconds maybe.
I bet you it's 20. I mean, it's fast.
It's really, really fast. It's almost, so you definitely want to do this at one of the 2 consoles that are nearby.
Yes.
The brig. And frankly, I have found that it works much better if it's a 2-person crew.
Yeah.
One person to be scanning it in, another person to be blocking the door at the brig so that you can run in and start tapping really, really quickly. Because inevitably, if you leave the brig unattended, someone's going to go in there and just start banging on the door, tapping the keys. So have someone scanning it in, take a photograph, have that person hightail it as fast as they can to the brig, unlock that code, open it up. It does add some additional story moments.
And who knows, maybe it might come in handy if you need to break somebody out of the brig later. So another thing that's good to have on your perfect voyage is don't forget that the food that you have at dinner, you can have as much as you want. So if you like that bantha beef, don't be shy about asking for another helping. If you like those bao buns that are super cool, ask for some more. The food is part of the experience, so don't be shy about getting as much as you want. Another way for you to have a perfect voyage is something that I took advantage of both voyages. At several points during that first night, there are episodes where characters are walking from one part of the ship to the other. My specific example for both voyages was Sammy. At one point, Sammy is trying to find Chewie during one of these smuggling moments. And if you see Sammy walking around the ship and he's got maybe a couple people with him, or he's by himself, don't be shy about saying, hey, Sammy, I see you looking around. Is there something I can help you with? Or just follow him in the group to the next experience, because there are story moments that aren't tied to data pad pieces. You can actually kind of happen your way into them. So don't be shy. Go ahead and follow people around. Don't be a jerk about it, but, enjoy taking part in the story.
So another thing to keep in mind is the droid that's in your room, D309. She isn't there just to fill you in on bits and pieces of the ship.
No.
And this is the droid that's on the screens on your
Yes,
on your room.
yes. She's there to take care of you too. So if you ask nice, she will tell you a story. And the story is kind of fabulous.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then the neat part about it is, as we were listening to the story the first time, it took until almost the end of the story to figure out who the narrator was of the story that she was,
it's a very
filling you in on.
It's a very familiar story, but it's told from a completely different point of view.
Yeah, it's wonderful. The other thing that she'll do for you is she'll sing you a lullaby.
Aw.
I know. Who doesn't need a lullaby from a droid before you go to sleep at night?
I think I need to record that. What are you doing, honey? This is how I go to sleep now.
But before you go to bed, there's actually going to be a kind of a survey sent out
Yep.
to you via the data pad that's actually super important. Drew, can you tell us about this and why people should look for it?
Yeah, so when we went the very first voyage, we didn't have this. This is something that I think they learned they needed to do after the fact. And this last questionnaire, it's very similar to the one that Lincoln Mock tells you or gives you at the beginning of the cruise. But the end of the first night, you're going to get another chance to kind of indicate to the story engine, this is the path that I'm interested in following. It's a way for you to cement what you've already been doing. Maybe it's a way to say, maybe I'm interested in a little bit more of that first order guy or this force sensitive thing that I'm feeling now all of a sudden. So it's another way for you to kind of indicate to the story what you want to take.
Now, of course, there's never a guarantee.
Yes.
There's always
Right.
limitations based on, capacity for different storylines
Yep,
and whatnot. But it is this is kind of the last chance you have to do major course correction on how you're sorted. I mean, think of this as the Star Wars equivalent of the Harry Potter sorting hat.
Yeah, right.
I mean, Gryffindor.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
can't all be Gryffindor.
so that's really but do take this seriously. Do take the time to go through it, because this is going to be kind of what drives your story engine, your personal story engine on day 2.
Yeah, it decides how many people are going to be assigned certain missions the next day on Batu and kind of allows you to move the direction that you want to go.
All right, well, let's move to day 2
Yes.
of the Galactic Starcruiser experience. And what is a perfect day on day 2? This is excursion day. So
Yes.
you kind of start with breakfast and Batu.
Breakfast in Batu, I love it. That's going to be the name of my next Led Zeppelin cover band.
I want to be a bed and breakfast, Batu and breakfast. Yeah. But of course, if you're talking about a perfect day on Batu, the very, very first thing is no rain.
Sure, if it's going to be a perfect day, why not wave a magic wand and say there are no rain clouds in sight?
Check the climate simulator first. But any perfect day in Batu. Now, of course, you can't control the weather, but this is the theoretical 100%
Right.
if everything went your way,
Right, yes,
perfect
yes.
voyage. And of course, along that line, what's another thing that would make things go right or wrong on Batu?
If we're going to wave a magic wand, you might as well wave this one.
I mean, ideally, it would be amazing if both of the rides were working.
Yes.
So Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run and Rise of the Resistance?
Yes, absolutely. And, the Millennium Falcon's Smuggler's Run is normally working. That one's not so tricky.
It's got high capacity and everything's ironed in, so it's pretty stable.
Yeah, but I can't tell you how many times, whether we're at Disney World or at Disneyland, that you line up, you're doing the, rope drop, and you get up there and they're like, no, ride's not working. We don't know when it'll be working again.
Yep.
And your time on Batu is somewhat limited. I mean, they do give you 6 hours on Batu, which is
Yeah.
fantastic. But there's so many other things that you want to do. And to spend your time continually checking to see if Rise of the Resistance is up is not a perfect day.
So on a perfect day, the rides are both working, of course.
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you what, then, in my opinion, one of the things that really has to happen for a perfect day on Batu is a reservation at Oga's Cantina.
No question.
Absolutely. And the more people in your group you can have to be part of this, because there are some Star Cruiser specific moments that can happen in and around Oga's Cantina. So definitely take the time, make that reservation. It's one of the best times we've ever had at Oga's Cantina.
Yeah, and it was really neat. For as many times as we've been to Oga's Cantina, this last time we went was the first time that we actually got to stand at the bar.
Yeah, and we used to think that was not a good way.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
the best way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. That way you're, interacting with the bartender. You get to see a lot of that backdrop behind them that you don't get to see when you're sitting at one of the booths. So yeah, if you have an opportunity, I would definitely ask if you can stand at the bar.
Of course, it's not a guarantee that you'll be able to stand at the bar, but if you have a chance, go ahead and wait for it because it is worth it.
Well, Drew, actually, who gave us the heads up that standing at the bar was the right thing to do?
It was Jay, the Crucial Crew member, of course.
Of
And-
course.
Jay.
Yeah, it was such a great idea. I hope we get to stand at the bar again. Another thing that you can do, maybe after Oga's, maybe when you first get on Batu, is take advantage of the PhotoPass experiences that are available around the park. If you have a PhotoPass, there are several photographers. Where are some of the locations, Martin?
Oh boy, of course, in front of the Millennium Falcon is a great one.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
front of the Thai Echelon, over by the milk stand. They've got it over by the A-Wing, by Rise of the Resistance.
And the very best one, in my opinion,
is the super magic shot they have at the Falcon Overlook.
Yes.
So right outside of the entrance to the docking bay restaurant.
Right.
It's a super magic shot. This is the one where they have you kind of look off into the distance with the Falcon, in the foreground, and they zoom all the way across the other side of, the hangar, right to a close-up of you.
Yeah.
And they include the sound effects. They include the Galaxy's Edge music, swelling up. It's a fantastic little animated shot.
It is so cool.
And make sure to look for it because, if there's a line,
it's worth it. Wait for it. Absolutely wait for it. I mean, I saw the line the first time when we went on our first voyage. I was like, I don't really want to wait. I've got other things I want to do. But I'm so glad that we had the photo pass and that we took the advantage of having those pictures taken.
And what we did is you got to be mindful of their time, but we asked for 2 of them just to kind of get 2 different poses, and they were able to knock those out for us super, super quickly. But the photographer that we actually had the same photographer doing this at both of our 2 different voyages, which was months apart, and she was spectacular.
Yes.
And she actually remembered us on the second voyage, but photo pass is a fantastic thing to have on your excursion day in Batu.
So now that your day at Batu is winding to a sad close and you need to find your way back to the ship, you don't have to go back at a certain time, by the way. You can go back. They have voyages back to the ship, 3:30, 4 o'clock?
4 o'clock is when they end.
Yeah. So,
but you got missions waiting for you back on
missions.
the ship.
You might have lunch that you might want to go have too. That's another opportunity for a perfect day, is to have the lunch buffet on the second day. But something that I didn't get to do is something you and Christine got to do, Martin. Can you tell us what the next episode on a perfect day would consist of?
Well, it's completely random. There's no way to actually game the system to make this happen. But there's 2 groups of people that are randomly selected by the ground crew that, kind of put the guests on the shuttle to go back to the Halcyon. And one group is selected to take back the data tapes. There's one storyline that you need to get the data tapes secretly up to the Halcyon. And there's another one, that you need to take the coaxium secretly up to the ship. And so you're kind of pulled aside and said, hey, we need you to take this crate secretly and give it to this person, at the arrival station on the Halcyon. And of course, no one wants to give it back. They want to keep the crate all to themselves.
Sure.
But that would ruin the story for everyone. So, but it's really a kind of a fun moment on a perfect day to be picked for this random, assignment.
And it wouldn't surprise me if they have it more than twice. I mean, there's no reason they couldn't have had the 1 o'clock sent up to the ship or the 3 o'clock. So who knows how many there are? But so it's possible that there's more than just those 2. But if you're able to get one of these things, that would be really, really cool.
I've never actually thought about that. They could send them, back up secretly constantly just to get as many. Sure. That's actually a really, really clever thing to do.
Yeah. So, and again, we wish we could tell you exactly how to engineer getting that moment. But, if maybe you see somebody holding a fancy looking box as you're getting ready to leave, maybe you can time your exit just perfectly.
Well, something that's going on the Halcyon on day 2 while people are down on the excursion day in Batu is they do run sabacc tournaments.
Yep.
And there's a couple rounds where they kind of have the prelims, and then there's the final. So really, if you're going to talk about the perfect day, you got to win that sabacc tournament.
You do. That's the only way to make your day. Of course, there's lots of ways to make your day perfect, but that would be another great way to have a perfect day.
And the only way to win is to play.
Wow, we didn't plan that or anything. That was really good. But yeah, and one of the ways you can practice, we didn't talk about having a perfect day earlier. If you have time or if you have the opportunity to play at the sabacc table in the Sublight Lounge, that's also something that's good. That way you can learn the game so that you can practice your skills and slide that card across the table at just the right moment.
And kind of concurrent with the sabacc tournament on day 2 on the Halcyon. Again, most people are on Batu at this time.
Yep.
But there's an experience that you actually have to sign up on day 1 to experience on day 2. Can you tell us about that, Christine?
They've got a really unique experience in the Sublight Lounge where you have an opportunity to taste several of the different drinks that they serve, whether it's in the lounge or at any of your dinners. The experience is called Spirits of Adventure. Like Martin said, you do need to go to guest services the day before to sign up for it because it's limited. The great thing about it is that they have alcoholic version and non-alcoholic version.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So depending on what anybody else wants in your party, you have the opportunity to do either.
Yeah.
Or both.
Or both.
both.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a great way to learn some more lore and some story behind the cocktails and learn what inspired them or where those drinks come from. It's really cool. I hope we get to do it on our third voyage.
Some of the funnest crew to talk to on the Halcyon
no question.
are the chemists
No question.
working the Sublight Lounge.
They have been, to a person, super personable and super fun to talk with. They know tons about their backstories. It seems a lot of them worked at Oga's Cantina at one time or another. But it's so much fun.
So on the way out of your spirits of adventure on your perfect day, you're going to wander into the atrium and you're going to start noticing that, some characters are missing, and this is at the time of the day 2 when most folks are kind of starting to kind of filter back from Batu onto the Halcyon. But some character interaction moments are already happening at this time. And one of these is you can get invited by Gaia to meet her for a meeting in the cargo hold, where she'll kind of entice you to take part in this upcoming heist that's going on in the Wraith Cole storyline. Yeah,
so the Wraith Cole storyline, of course, is set up the night before. Wraith asks people who want to participate to wear that black napkin in their data band. But some other people might have some of these shoulder tap moments with Gaia, where you might learn a little bit more about the upcoming heist and what it means to her.
And we've actually spoken with folks where it's a small group of people that Gaia meets with. We've even spoken to people where it's a one-on-one meeting with Gaia in the cargo hold. So, definitely do what you can to be on Gaia's radar at that point in time, and you might get lucky.
If you've spent some time with Wraith the day before and your data pad has given you some, messages from Wraith during your time down on Batu, it's very likely you're going to be invited to a meeting with Wraith.
Yep.
And this is the meeting to be a part of.
It really is.
This is where he lines out what needs to happen for the heist. And it's pretty incredible the way that they've put it together, because it doesn't seem to matter how big the group is that he has.
Yeah.
He's able to take, handfuls of people and make sure that everybody in that room is included in some way with the heist.
Some people might be asked to watch the door. Darn it, that visor just made me perfect to say have him do that joke. But yeah.
It's okay, Drew. It was still important.
It was.
But again, the perfect experience, the cherry on top to this experience to be part of Wraith's crew is for him to ask you to be his right-hand man.
Absolutely. If it's a perfect day, that you're going to be his right-hand man.
Absolutely. And sometimes that right-hand man is a right-hand woman.
Sure. Or a right-hand person. So it's all good.
Exactly.
So just using the phrase right-hand man on this particular heist storyline this is the person that actually interfaces directly with Wraith, that Wraith will actually pass you the Hyananea stone once it's stolen out of the hyperspace compass in the atrium. So this is the moment where this person gets to hold the Hyananea stone before they secretly pass it back to Wraith after he has that little fun interaction with Captain Kevin.
Yep.
So this really is a very important piece of the story to be selected to be a part of. We've seen this a couple different times, not only in person, but in videos and talking with people.
All over YouTube, yes.
There's different ways the heist can go down. There's different, jobs that can be assigned, and there's different ways that it can kind of end at the conclusion. But I have always seen some variation of there being a quote right-hand man unquote selected. So in a perfect day, it would be you. Yep,
exactly. And don't let us make you think that the other jobs aren't important, because of course they are. But the right-hand man, there's something special about it. I think you'd probably agree, Christine.
I would wholeheartedly agree.
But there's actually different pieces of this that aren't just with the stone. For instance, you got to smuggle Gaia's luggage, and there's a whole, a lot of the pieces of the heist are all distraction moments.
Yep.
You could argue that in a perfect day, if you were so inclined, you would be picked as the distraction couple.
Yes.
The couple that gets asked to fake a proposal or some odd...
Or fake a celebration of some kind, or maybe make some sort of giant distraction of some dramatic moment.
And some folks, that's the moment that they want to be picked for.
Sure.
So there's a lot of different, pieces of this, but, smuggling Gaia's luggage in as a distraction is kind of a cool little piece to be selected for as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the ones that I think Gabby mentioned, or one of our recent guests mentioned, that I got to do was I got to go tell Gaia that her eyes were sparkling, and that was the cue that she knew that the stone had been taken and that we were going to meet soon in the cargo hold. So that was fun.
Oh, I told Gaia that her eyes were sparkling, and I had no idea that there was any other meaning to that.
Well, her eyes do sparkle, yes.
But in conjunction with that storyline, again, there's many different things happening on the ship at any one time, so you won't be able to do all of these things every voyage, or some of these things you just are impossible. But at this point in time, Rey is being smuggled onto the Halcyon, and that's kind of a cool moment to see Rey arrive, and kind of she meets up with the Saja, and there's a plan. The Halcyon's in trouble at this point. The First Order has a nefarious plan, and Rey's there to aid the Halcyon. And it is really kind of a neat thing to be able to have that bridge training moment where she's brought onto the ship, and then to actually see her enter the ship. That's kind of a really cool moment that you're lucky to be there for.
And we've heard several people talk about experiences where they ran into Rey. I know Peter and Kitra saw Rey on one of their videos, as I recall, but you guys ran into Rey too, didn't you?
Oh, I felt so bad about this. Was actually on our voyage number 1, and Rey was she's in trouble at this point. The character's in trouble. This ship's in trouble. She's trying to fight off the First Order, and Christine. I wanted so badly to have a picture with Rey and Christine in her full makeup and her full costume, her full character. Christine put so much effort into this, and I wanted a picture with Rey so badly. And I'm like, Rey, can you just take a moment? And this, to her credit, this Rey performer did not break the storyline. She did not break reality. For a moment, she was like, I'm really trying to. I'm like, it'll just take a second. And she's like, fine. So we have a picture with your Christine as Maleficent with an extremely panicked, deer in the headlights Rey.
And I'm sure the people in her headpiece were going, we need you upstairs.
So I feel terrible in hindsight that I was like, we kind of threw that performer off her game and asked her to do something that, because again, if one person asks for a picture, suddenly she's gonna be mobbed by people, and she's not supposed to be taking pictures.
Well, you were there by yourselves, though, so it wasn't like there were a lot of people around.
But still, in hindsight, do be mindful of what you're doing to this performer, and and their storyline. If they've got like a sense of urgency to them, asking them to stop and pose for a photo, in hindsight, wasn't the super coolest thing to do. But
it's a perfect day, and if you have a chance, man, meeting Rey would be pretty cool.
It's a pretty hilarious photo, though.
And to go along with the meeting of Rey, it's an amazing ending to the Saja story, being able to see Rey with one of the Saja, the opening of the holocron.
Oh, yeah.
And Yoda.
Oh my gosh. Holy mackerel.
I will say this is one of the hardest experiences to get into, strictly because of capacity limits. More folks want to get into this particular finale, I would argue, than any other storyline finale.
Yeah, we're talking about it obviously on the spoiler-filled episode, but there's a lot on the web, so people have heard about this. This is getting out there. So yeah, you'll have people going, but if you naturally get in your missions, the mission to find a Jedi artifact, just finish that mission. Just finish that mission.
And this is on Batuu, and you'll have to scan a lot of crates.
You do have to scan a lot of crates.
The ending is spectacular.
Oh, it's to me, it is the moment. And this is one of the things on our Sublight Lounges when we talk about favorite moments. This always comes up because it really is magical. You are there. That first time you see Yoda appearing as a hologram, it's otherworldly.
I actually wonder a lot about what else is going on the ship at the time that they do those holocron finales, because I'll probably never see those things because I'll always want to be in that holocron finale.
This is another reason why it's such a good idea for your group to break up, because the likelihood of somebody in your group being on that Saja path and being able to get invited to that, there is a potential of you being allowed to tag along.
Yes.
Again, like we talked about, there are limits to the capacity of the room. But there is that opportunity for, a potential of you being invited to that.
And they run it at least twice.
Yeah.
At least twice.
We think they might run it another 2 times, but we don't know for sure. But there's at least 2
I'd say
groupings.
there's multiple runnings.
Yeah. So, and maybe they'll do more depending on how many people show up for certain cruises, of course. But if somebody in your group has a chance and you have a chance to tag along, it really is spectacular. Now we're at the finale. The evening is over on day 2. All your story moments have broken up, and Croy is having his magnificent takeover of the ship. What's a fun way to have that be your perfect day at the end there?
Well, there's a moment where Lieutenant Harmon Croy starts giving individual shout outs to different members of the Halcyon passengers to say, this person helped me out, that person helped me out. And it can be an extensive list. I mean, he can call out 5, 6, 7, 8 people that have specifically been dedicated to the First Order storyline. Now, again, there is absolutely no guarantees that you can follow Harmon Croy diligently the entire voyage, and you will not be one of the people necessarily that he goes to call out to. But it's awfully cool if you are.
Oh, no question. And it's one of the rewards for being a loyal First Order member. So if you can have your perfect day in the First Order, this would definitely be one way to have it end.
Speaking of that kind of moment in time, is everyone, the entire passengers, are in the atrium at this point. The klaxons have been blaring, the red lights, the alerts. Everyone is at their muster stations.
Some of us are eating our 4th helping of shrimp. Right?
We're not going to let this emergency deter us from. Can I get this to go?
Right. Yes.
But the finale actually starts happening, and this is the big climactic battle between Rey and Kylo Ren, and several things are happening. But having been on the voyage twice, and again talking with several people, we do have an opinion about where to stand for the finale. And Drew, Christine, what are your opinions on that?
So I think comparing our first voyage to our second voyage, my vote would be for Muster Station Crush. And the reason is because there are some elements that are happening in Muster Station Dorn, or at least, in conjunction with Muster Station Dorn, that you want to be able to see. And I would also recommend standing in front of the Halcyon model that's on the ship. So you're kind of in the middle of everything to some degree. But that gives you the best opportunity to not only see everything that's happening above you, but to be able to turn and see everything that's kind of happening behind you too.
Yeah. And they block off an area around the model, so you can only get so close because they have to set up areas for the cast members to do part of the show. But if you can stand and crush and you can move over there, again, there's no bad spot in the atrium. Please don't think that crush is the only way to play, but it was the best. I really liked it a lot.
I would argue that the closer you can get to the center of the room, the better off you are, because things are happening on both sides of the railing up top. So if someone is extremely far off to one side of the room, they're going to have a hard time seeing what's happening upstairs on the in the walkway, the catwalk, up on that side of the room that they're on. So the closer you can be to the center of the room, the better. But yeah, really the ideal spot would be the front quarter of the Muster Station Crush.
Now let's wrap up our perfect voyage. We had a few things that we had in our list that can happen on either day that are kind of things that we just wanted to make sure that we filled in for people to have a perfect voyage. What's the first one on the list, Christine?
Your CSL photo shoot. We talked originally about the pricing coming out of the gate. We talked about the increase in pricing and the cost of your voyage, along with maybe going to Disney World, your flight out there, all that. Your CSL photo shoot might seem a little expensive. If you're feeling that, go on Instagram or on Facebook and look at some of the CSL photos that people have gotten.
They're so good.
I mean, the time that you're doing this, the time that you've put into your costuming possibly, or, getting your whole family together to go on this trip, you're going to want photo memories of it. And I don't know about you, but we don't carry a light stick when we travel.
Nope.
And it makes all the difference in the world with these photos.
See, that's the thing. Yes, $400 is pricey, but what a lot of folks don't realize is this isn't just a photographer. There is an actual dedicated second individual that's the lighting assistant. And we're not talking about just one light bar. We're talking about a full lighting kit multicolors, depending on the different environments.
Set moods.
I mean, truly, you will get photographs that are completely unachievable just by yourself.
Yep, there's no question. So again, $400 is a hard pill to swallow, but man, for your perfect voyage, we recommend it.
Something else that can really happen on either day 1 or 2, but really is definitely a candidate for a perfect day, is during your bridge training.
Mm-hmm.
One person is kind of just randomly selected to take the ship into hyperspace. And I have to say, as someone that has been able to do that and pull that lever back and send that Halcyon into hyperspace, that is something that really makes a day perfect.
Yeah, and again, this is not something we can engineer 100%. I wish I could tell you there was a way to be picked, but if you're in the right spot toward the back of the room, usually by the shield station, when they actually do the moment, you might be chosen.
I do believe, based on the videos and the people we talk to and personal experience, if you're in costume, I do think your chances are better.
It's possible, yeah.
But something else that really can happen, mostly I would argue on day 1, but it can technically happen on day 2 as well.
Oh, they definitely have it on day 2 also.
On day 2 is if you're in the climate simulator, that moment with the Saja where they kind of just start instructing on the force and they do that force pull with the rock.
Oh, yeah.
It's it's such a simple trick that they pull to create the illusion, but it's executed with such perfection and such honesty on the part of the performer that you really feel a connection to the force in this moment.
And I think it's something that even if you witnessed somebody else going through this experience, it might not be exactly the same, but it still would be really, really cool to be a witness to somebody seeing that they're force sensitive and actually experiencing what it's like to use the force for the first time. That's got to be a part of a perfect voyage.
Watching kids' faces when they pull a rock and use the force is a really, really cool moment to just see a kid's face light up, that this has just become something real to them. And, as lifelong Star Wars fans, we all know what that feels like. And it's just really fun to see that moment happen for some kid.
Yeah, and I would say, again, you can't engineer it. I would say that if you're in the climate simulator, if you have an hour to kill on one day and you feel like meditating, or you feel like being at one with nature, it might pay off for you.
Something else that can happen that really is kind of a component for a perfect day. And again, this can happen on day 1, day 2, or even on departure, day 3.
Now, as they have the shop open, yep.
Is the Chandrila collection. All your desired merch is in stock. And this is never a guarantee. I mean, we were on the voyage 2 different times and the Sabacc chips were never in stock.
Never.
Thank goodness we had a fantastic friend, Holly Fry, a friend go on a voyage. They were in stock. She bought us both sets and we was able to send them to us, but it's really kind of hit or miss. I, to this day, still do not have all of the costuming that I want to buy in my size. They got extra small. Well, I am not extra small. So really, you got to kind of, it's hit or miss depending on whether the stuff you want is in stock. But I highly encourage you, if something isn't in stock on day 1, go back on day 2. If it's not in stock on day 2, go back on day 3. The Chandrila Collection store is now open on departure day. Definitely check it out. They do restock that store every single day.
Yeah, and not only do they restock it, sometimes the people know when certain merchandise is going to be back in stock. So if you talk to them in the first night and the Sabacc chips are not there, you might talk to them and they'll say, hey, we're expecting a restock tomorrow night, or they might be there. So you might get a clue on when that merchandise is available for your perfect voyage.
Something we're really looking forward to on our next voyage is having captain's table. We tried both times and just didn't get the luck of the draw. This time we were very lucky to be able to get captain's table. We know that the captain's table, not only do you have an extra opportunity to possibly talk to Lieutenant Croy or possibly to the captain herself, but there is additional food items that this is the only way that you can get them.
Yeah, it's not like it's suddenly there's a lobster plate in front of you, nothing like that, but a nice amuse-bouche, if you will. And they have a nice toast that the captain does, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm excited for that.
It would make a perfect day.
Absolutely. That's what we're doing here.
But on the subject of toasting, there's no better place to do it on the ship than the Sublight Lounge. And the best way to have a drink in the Sublight Lounge is if you're lucky enough to have it with one of the characters. Several of the characters actually kind of mingle through the Sublight Lounge. You know, Wraith Cole, Gaia, the Captain, Sandro,
Sammy.
Wani. I mean, Chewbacca even makes an appearance in the Sublight Lounge.
Yep.
And if you get the moment to just have a character sit with you and have a drink, it's amazing. Now, of course, they're not going to have a drink themselves. They're the performers working.
Sure.
But truly, to just you have a drink while you're sitting with Wraith Cole, with Gaia, with Wani, is such a deeply connective moment to these characters.
Yeah.
It feels so real. It feels like you're just sitting with friends in this lounge, and to be able to have a drink with them is having a drink with your friends. Sensational. Having a drink with your friends and one of the characters, absolutely perfect.
So that goes along with another thing. And again, we can't engineer this last piece for a perfect voyage. And we've talked a little bit about it earlier in the episode. But along with the drink in the Sublight Lounge are the experiences that we like to call shoulder tap moments. Shoulder tap moments are the ones where you're just minding your own business. Maybe you're looking at the map of the ship on deck 4, or you're in the Sublight Lounge, or maybe you're in the engineering room and you're just kind of playing with one of the gear. And a character walks up to you and says, "Hey, do you have a moment?" And you have one of those moments where you're talking with Wraith, or you're talking with Sammy, or Gaia needs your help, or the captain wants to confer with you about something.
And really, although you can't engineer these things happening, activity breeds activity.
Yes.
You have to put yourself out there.
Yes.
You have to put yourself in a circumstance where it could happen. I mean, if you stay in your cabin, this isn't going to happen. They're not going to come to you there.
No, they won't. I hope not.
The more you interact with other passengers, even, the more likely a character is to come and interact with you. So the more you put yourself out, the more you're setting yourself up for the perfect day.
So to wrap things up, guys, I know you can't have all these. A perfect voyage is, perfection is impossible, and you can't do all these things. But I hope that folks listening kind of heard some things that maybe spark some of their imagination about what they can do for their voyage. Martin, if you had to pick one of these, what would you say would be this is the thing I got to figure out how I'm going to have?
As someone who has never gone down the first order path, I would absolutely love to get a shout out from Croy.
That would be so amazing. I agree. That would be super cool. How about you, Christine?
As someone who's been Wraith's right-hand man, I just don't think it gets any better than that.
Drew, take it home.
Well, for me, again, we can't promise that there's a way for everybody to do this, but if there's a way for you to get in the holocron reveal and see Yoda and just have that moment, that was the moment where I knew, oh man, I'm kind of screwed because I'm going to have to do this thing again. That was a perfect voyage for me, for sure. Well, cool. Well, we hope we've sparked your imagination. And if you have a perfect moment that maybe we've left out, we'd love to hear from you. Christine, if people wanted to reach out to us, how would they do so?
You can always find us at heroesofthehalcyon@gmail.com. We love to get your stories, your pictures, pre-voyage, post-voyage. We just love hearing from you. You can also find us on Instagram at Heroes of the Halcyon, on Twitter at Halcyon_heroes. Make sure to subscribe to YouTube and look for podcasts showing up online, along with additional videos that we've got forthcoming. And don't forget Patreon, patreon.com/Heroes of the Halcyon. We appreciate your support.
Well, each and every week, it's always fun to shoot the poodoo with all the Galactic Starcruiser superfans out there. So until next episode, it's our honor. Let's raise our glasses with the Halcyon toast.
Tabuite!